All right, what up, everybody? This is Jeremy with Escape Velocity Trading coming at you for another market bias update report for Sunday, September 15th. Futures market just opened about an hour and a little under a half ago. Starting off, let's look at the recap from trading last week. Ended up taking 21 trades, won on 13 of them, lost on 8 of them for a total gain over the course of the last week of $8,795. Ended up taking Thursday and Friday off last week, so this was just over the Sunday through Wednesday time frame. I was actually heading out to the Gorge in Washington to go to a show and camp for the weekend. So now I am back to it. Basically looking through this, had a little bit lower percentage, win to loss percentage than I normally like. It came in around 62% instead of somewhere in the mid 70s, which is where I usually live. But still ended up being able to eke out a nice gain for the week, just being very selective on the trades that I was taking on short time frames. And you will notice if you look at the number of contracts column right here, that I was actually oscillating back and forth throughout the week on shorting versus going long. So anywhere where you see a +1, that meant I was in a long position. Anytime you see a -1, like right here, that means that I had actually switched to short-term bearish. And I am doing this normally when I day trade futures on either a 3-minute chart or 5-minute chart. Those are the two that I like to live on. And you can also see basically all of the trades except for one were on Bitcoin. Ended up taking a trade on natural gas that wasn't quite ready yet, got out of it, waited for a little while, and since then I've actually re-entered a trade on natural gas because I am still bullish on that position. So I do have an open position on natural gas carrying into this coming week. So with that, let's dive out and go look at some charts. First off, S&P 500, we have gapped up on the open here on Sunday, and we have actually set a higher high. So if we look at this, putting a line here for resistance, and I'm actually going to put this onto a weekly chart so you can really see this. So if we zoom in on a weekly time frame, we'd been consolidating. We had set a slightly lower pivot high right here on the 26th of August, and we had had a significantly lower high here on the 5th of August. But on a longer time frame, this still constituted an uptrend, right? We're still setting higher highs and higher lows on the weekly time frame, even though we did on the daily chart start setting lower highs and lower lows there. We had the slightly lower high with a higher low, which means we were in some form of a triangle consolidation. And we just broke out of that on the gap open here on Sunday and now are setting a higher pivot low. So if I remove those drawings, you can see here we had our all-time high, a low, a slightly lower high, a slightly higher low, and now we are breaking out and setting a higher high once again, which is signaling that we are most likely coming back up to retest the 5721 and change arena to battle and see if bulls can break out for a new all-time high. If we fail on that, going back to a daily chart, I would expect us to come back down into our significant moving averages, somewhere around 55.80 down to 55.40, and see if we can get some consolidation there. But basically, as long as we keep this diagonal trend line intact, we are still going to be viewing this as just a consolidation pattern with the benefits being given to the bulls. So expectation to the bulls for an eventual breakout here, unless we do violate this trend line. Going out to the Nasdaq. Nasdaq very similar, although you can see that it had sold off a little bit more aggressively, got all the way down to our 200-period moving average on the daily. We are breaking out here, continuing the bullish movement from last week, but we have not set that higher pivot high on the weekly chart yet. So if we put this out to a weekly, you can tell we have not put in that higher high. So we are still in some degree of consolidation here. I am expecting that the Nasdaq is going to probably play some catch up over the next week or two. And this is really based on just going out and looking at the heat map. So this is a 1-week performance of last week's data. And you can see a ton of green with big percentage movements coming into the tech space. Oracle was up almost 15%, Microsoft over 7%. Nvidia was up 15.8, Avgo 22%, AMD 13%. The list goes on. So money was coming back hard into the technology sector. And then if we look out into the rest of the market, there was green scattered throughout. So bulls were coming back out to play. Had some good 2 to 3% gains in healthcare, similar with healthcare plans, medical devices, diagnostics, and research. Financial was kind of a mixed bag. We had some down, some up. Energy was mostly down, so that is the area of the market that is showing the most weakness. But overall, bulls coming back out to play. So where does that leave us going into the rest of the market? I am expecting that we are probably going to try to break out of this previous pivot high on the Nasdaq and have some catch up potentially in the Nasdaq here. But it is going to be a very busy week with the Federal Reserve coming out with their rate policy on the 18th. So we're going to have to be paying attention to that in addition to the regular economic data that comes out week to week. Going out to the Russell. Russell playing some catch up as well. We did break the diagonal resistance line that we had, are a bit overextended in terms of just number of days in a row being up significantly. We have this being the fourth candle in a row coming off of the 200 period moving average, but the RSI is not even close to being overextended on the daily time frame. We're actually just now barely breaking back into bullish territory. So there could still be some significant catch-up trades in the Russell 2000, and I'm keeping an eye on that area of the market. And then if we go out to the Dow Jones, we are actually setting currently a new all-time high on the Dow Jones. It seems like this area of the market is front-running the rest of the market a bit, and maybe giving us a taste of what might be to come coming up on the other indexes. You can see that we did just break out above our resistance zone here, the consolidation zone that really goes back into the earlier part of July. We are trying to push higher on that, so we're looking for a close above that area. And if that does close, this is a continuation pattern, a big cup and handle pattern right there that does signal probably higher prices to come. If we go out to Bitcoin, Bitcoin struggling a little bit, coming off the lows. We'd had kind of an ugly look getting our first real closes underneath our daily 200 for a long time. If I drop this out to a longer time frame chart, you can see the last time that we actually closed below the 200 period moving average was back here sometime about a year ago. So anyways, that was of note here the last little bit. We have reclaimed that 200 period moving average, and now we are just stuck between the 200 and the overhead 50. So looking to see how that cleans itself up in the coming days here. I would not be surprised to see a couple of days of neutrality and then a breakout to the upside. Overall, I do feel like we are coming to the end of this consolidation rut in Bitcoin, and I do expect that we are probably going to see higher prices to come in the not too distant future. But if we put this out to a weekly chart, the weekly chart is still showing weakness. We are still showing lower pivot highs and lower pivot lows. We did fight to hold the 50 period moving average on the weekly chart, which is really important. So to me, this is going to be a weekly time frame battle in terms of who wins, bulls or bears. If we do end up getting a close below that 50 period moving average and we give up last week's gains, that is not going to be a good look. And my base case at that point would be to come back down to the mid 40s, somewhere around 45,000. But with that said, I'm not expecting that to take place. My base case is probably going neutral for a day or two and closing the week, trying to break out higher. If we do close back above the 20 period SMA, which is at around 62,800, 62,900, and then ultimately get back above this pivot right here, that will be the line on the sand where we can start to turn bullish once again. Although at that point, we are going to be looking at our diagonal resistance line just a few thousand above it. So ultimate confirmation, obviously coming back up to break above 74K. If we go out to crude light, drop this back to a daily chart, you can see that oil and energy is just getting absolutely smoked lately. We are overextended to the downside, so I would not be shocked to see the bulls continue to try to push in here after consolidating or pulling back for a day or two. But because we are having a hard time fighting to regain the 9 EMA here, I do expect it to take a day or two before that transpires. Finally, going out to our precious metals, looking at gold real quick, breaking out to all-time highs. We have just consolidated for the last about 2 to 3 weeks and are now breaking back above that. If this breakout confirms and holds, which it looks like it's going to, this could be off to the races for gold. If we go out to silver, similar, but it had been showing a little bit more weakness, ended up regaining the bullish momentum with a new higher high and higher low comparative to the last two pivots. And now we are breaking out, setting a new higher high again in a little channel here for the bulls. We have broken above our diagonal resistance line, but we are closing in on the highs from this previous pivot right up here around $32. So it'll be really interesting to see if the momentum can continue or if we hit our head around that 32 mark and pull back. The healthiest look for this chart, in my opinion, would be for us to do another day up, come into around that 32 level, the highs of this previous major pivot, pull back and retest the 30 mark, and then put a confirmation candle in for the bulls to come back up and ultimately challenge the 32.75 level. Any pullbacks in silver now, I do think are going to be buys once again. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on silver in particular. And then finally, if we go out to our other metals, first off, palladium, you can see it is waking up. And if we put this out to a weekly chart, last week we got the first close above our 50-period moving average for quite some time. We have not been above the 50 since going back to August of 2022. So it has been quite a long time, and we do have quite a window here where if this wakes up and decides to move, we might get some momentum back to the upside. So I'm keeping an eye on palladium. And then basically rinse and repeat the exact same thing here on platinum, although it didn't sell off quite as hard. And we have been maintaining a slight slope to the positive direction on our support line here. I am kind of expecting that we are going to consolidate a little bit and then break out and move back up to the 1050 or 1100 mark for palladium. Going out, finally, let's look at our economic data for the week ahead. Nothing coming out tomorrow on Monday. Tuesday is going to be really important. We have retail sales month over month, so that's going to be important. Wednesday is a huge day, all focused on the Federal Reserve. We have our press conference. We have the update for the federal funds rate, and it is widely expected that we are going to get at least a 25 basis point cut, if not a 50 basis point cut. So current rates is 525 to 550, and it is looking like probably a coin flip between dropping that 25 points or dropping that 50 points. Again, the market should react bullishly to that as long as it is not on weakening economic data. If it is on economic data that is weakening and the market senses fear in the market or like a recession might be around the corner, it is likely to sell off on the news. Otherwise, as long as the core retail sales and other economic data pieces that we have coming in signal that things are still stable, I am expecting for that to be a little bit of a bullish tilt to the market. And then finally on Thursday, we do have unemployment claims, which will also be important, but I'm kind of expecting that to be overshadowed by Thursday's news. So with that, guys, I hope that helps. As always, trade safe, take care. Let me know if you have any questions and hit me up in the comments if you do, and I'll get right back to you.